Another lackluster offensive showing.
Wings the ball out, and the ball is tipped and intercepted.
We got to play better on offense. It's as simple as that.
It's a 4th and 1.5.
Yeah,
is what it really is.
Second guessing has begun.
It's time for risk.
Frustration is starting to set in.
That's the frustrating part about this is I know I'm a better player.
It's frustrating for sure.
It's frustrating.
There are concerns about a divided locker room.
Things have been addressed. Yeah.
It's not a shot at that.
I mean, there hasn't been any finger pointing at all.
The season is young, but the losses are mounting.
And the slant's high and picked off.
There's no comfort with being 2-3 in the National Football League.
We just got to do everything we can to get a win this week.
Now, the best defense in the league comes calling.
Pass picked off.
They got a lot of dogs on defense.
Very, very fast and very, very physical.
It's a pivotal Week 6 matchup. Cowboys, Jaguars on CBS 11.
Less than 5 hours away from kickoff at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. It's another Crossroads Sunday for the Cowboys. The top-rated defense in the National Football League is in town. It's the Cowboys and the Jacksonville Jaguars right here on CBS 11, a 3:25 kickoff this afternoon, and we're here to get you ready for it. Welcome to Cowboys Game Day. Bill Jones along with Randy White and Keith Russell, and yes, the Cowboys at 2-3 on the season. It's not a must-win game for the Cowboys, but it's another one of those you better win this game because the Eagles won on Thursday, and you want to keep pace with the Eagles, right?
Well, of course. It's a home game in front of our fans. We want to go out there and make a good showing and win this football game.
You know, I'm happy that we're finally talking football because all week long, all we talked about are the issues with this Dallas Cowboys team and the issues they have with each other. I'm happy we're finally talking football, Bill.
Well, we are talking football, but it's an important game for the Cowboys, and we are talking about the issues from this past week as well. With the issues on this Cowboys offense, this is a team that has to guard against the blame game creeping into the locker room. Cowboys have the 30th ranked pass offense in the league. That's third to last. This week, Alan Hearns made the comment the receivers are getting separation. He went to the quarterback to clarify his comments. Dak says this is not a divided locker room.
No, I don't worry about the locker room splitting. We have great leadership. And we got great men in this locker room. Anytime anything comes up and it's even a hint of it could serve as that, we address it. And we address it immediately. Him being the great person that he is and give him compliments. Sent me a message before I even found out anything about it. We're good here. Squash that.
There's enough accountability in this locker room, and that there's not going to be any finger pointing. The guy that may get pointed out is going to say, "Hey, that's on me. You're not going to need anyone to go over and say, hey, you need to get your together."
Some bleeps in the locker room this week. Keith Russell, you were in the locker room. Alan Hearns, a former Jacksonville Jaguar. It's a team that's been known to talk a lot, and Alan Hearns was doing some talking this week. Is this locker room divided, do you think?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say flat out yes, this locker room is divided right now. Do I think it's repairable? Do I think it's fixable? Do I think they can patch it up? Yes, I think they can patch it up. But anytime, Randy, you have guys talking about who's to blame and whether it was the worst play call that could have been called in that situation. And we are getting open. And then they come back the next day and say, well, we weren't saying that Dak doesn't get us the ball. We're just saying we do get open. That's not all our fault. It's everybody's fault.
Randy's shaking his head.
So anytime you got guys talking every day and then clarifying the next day what they said, and then you got to go call Dak and tell him, hey, man, this is about to come out. I said this, but really what I meant was this. Yes, that's a locker room divided.
Well, I can tell you a solution to that problem, Keith. You know, when I played, we had similar issues come up. Coach Landry told us, you want to talk to the media, you talk them about yourself. You talk about yourself. If you want to talk about somebody else, that's my job as a head coach. I'll talk about the rest of the team. You talk just about yourself and tell them how great you are and how good you are, and you let the head coach talk about everybody else, and you solve that problem of a locker room talking about each other. That's where a team falls apart. You got to point the finger at yourself and say, hey, how can I get better? Don't point the finger somewhere else. You look at yourself, somewhere you could get better. And if you get everybody doing that, Now you got a chance to win. If you don't, you're going to lose.
You know, I'll point out back in 2010, the last time Jacksonville came to town, David Gerard and Jacksonville won over the Cowboys 35-10. The next week, the Cowboys went to Green Bay, got blown out. They were 1-7 on the season, and Wade Phillips got fired. But let's talk about what Troy Aikman had to say about the quarterback this week on his radio show on The Ticket, questioning the accuracy of Dak in recent games and his anticipation on some throws. What do you make of the talk about Dak and his lack of accuracy?
I think it's legit. When I looked at the completion percentage across the league of starting quarterbacks, the only starting quarterback who seems to be lower than Dak right now is Alex Smith. Among regular guys who play, not the guys who have had to sub in here or there. I think Dak has to work on his accuracy. I think he's throwing balls in front of guys sometimes when they should be over the back shoulder. He's putting it over the back shoulder when it should be leading the guy. And Jason Garrett came out and admitted it. He said Troy Aikman is an authority on accuracy among NFL quarterbacks. And that's something that can be improved, but it needs to be improved through hard work.
And Jason told a story about him and Troy at a Jay Novacek football camp in the 90s, and little Jimmy was inaccurate with his throws, and Troy said, well, Jimmy ought to move to wide receiver. Jason is of the opinion you can coach accuracy into a quarterback, and it has a lot more to do with just the quarterback there. He's got to have time to throw. In Dak's case, he has to set his feet and be able to make throws to his wide receivers. And speaking of those wide receivers, the first 5 games of this season, Cole Beasley has 17 catches. Kiki Kuti of the Houston Texans in 2 games has 17 catches. Deontay Thompson has 11. Allen Hurns, the aforementioned, has 8 catches. Tavon Austin and Michael Gallup on the list. We don't even mention Bryce Butler and Terrence Williams, who's on injured reserve. The wide receivers have not been involved in this offense. How do we correct this?
Well, Bill, you get an offensive line that gives your quarterback time to throw the ball. You get receivers go down there and run the right routes, and you get a quarterback that throws the ball accurately. That's easily solved. So, those are things you have to do. And if anybody knows, Troy Aikman knows when he's looking at a quarterback what he needs to improve in. Now, how do you quiet it, all of us, from saying anything about you? Go out and you have a great game. Go out and have a great game. Throw for 3 or 4 touchdowns. Do everything right. And you know what? Next week you'll be the hero. That's the way it works in this business.
Defense in the league, but no less.
And last but not least, one component we need to mention. When the wide receivers have the ball, hit them in their hands, catch the daggone thing. Catch it.
There you go.
I mean, these tips and these bobbles. I mean, some of them I can understand. Tavon Austin's a small guy. He's going up across the middle, and it's high, and it was a high pass. But catch the ball.
Well, and the other thing real quick, the offensive line is not the same offensive line this team had in 2016. In fact, with Travis Frederick's injury, you got a rookie at left guard. Lyle Collins wasn't a starter in that 2016 unit. You're missing 60% of the offensive line that you had in 2016. Now about this Jacksonville defense. Jalen Ramsey, now he was 50-50 with a knee issue this week, but supposedly he is going to play today. They got A.J. Bouye, who is another Pro Bowl type cornerback on the other side, Barry Church. And Dallas's own Tayshawn Gibson at safety, and this is the big reason why this is the #1 pass defense in the league.
Well, those wide receiver issues aren't going to get corrected today. I'm going to go on record and say they're not going to get corrected today. I don't see the Dallas Cowboys stretching the field against that defense. Jalen Ramsey takes away one side of the field instantly. I don't care who they line up over there. They're not going to have a big game. A.J. Bouye is just as good. I think the Cowboys are going to have to go with a short passing game, mix those tight ends, get Zeke involved in the passing game as well.
But, Randy, the Cowboys had problems running Zeke last week. In fact, he had 13 carries in that game against the Texans that netted a total of 0 yards. And Jacksonville has a linebacking crew that's among the fastest in the league with Telvin Smith and Miles Jack.
Well, I mean, what it boils down to is one-on-one battles. Guys on our offensive line and our backs and our receivers, our tight ends, you got to win that one-on-one battle on the line of scrimmage against these guys. If you don't, the running game's not going to do. If you do, we got a chance to make some big plays against these guys.
The Cowboys are unbeaten at home this season, though, at 2-0. Of course, 0-3 on the road. Just getting started here on Cowboys Game Day. Coming up, the burning question of the week. Is Jason Garrett on the hot seat? We tackle that next. But first, Time for our game day trivia question. With 18 tackles against the Texans, Leighton Vander Esch tied a Cowboys record for tackles in a game by a rookie. Who is he tied with? We'll have the answer after the break.
Was it you?
I think it might be the Manster.
It wasn't you?
No, it's not me.
Randy will acknowledge it wasn't him.
That's not.
In our Cowboys Game Day trivia question, we told you Leighton Vander Esch tied a Cowboys record for a rookie with 18 tackles in the Texans game. Did you know who he tied? Well, it was Anthony Hitchens, who was filling in for Sean Lee in 2014.
We just were being outplayed, and it's time for risk at that particular time. That's not second guessing.
Kind of sounded like second guessing there. 4th and 1.5 in overtime against the Texans last week. A hot topic this week. Welcome back to Cowboys Game Day as we get you set for Cowboys and Jags right here on CBS 11 at 3:25 this afternoon. Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on the call. Let's talk about that, though, last week. And recall on 3rd and 1.5, Zeke Elliott got stopped for no gain. And then on 4th and 1.5, the Cowboys elect to punt. Keith, what was your opinion on what should have happened there?
My opinion was the same of all the folks traveling back on the bus to the flight back to Dallas. They should have gone for it on 4th and 1 because that defense was gassed. That defense had nothing left. They hadn't stopped the Texans. The Texans pretty much stopped themselves. They moved the ball up and down the field. The Cowboys had some great stops inside the red zone, and they tightened up. But nobody felt the Cowboys were going to be able to stop the Texans from moving the ball if that defense had to go back on the field. They clearly should have gone for it. That's just my opinion.
What play were the Cowboys going to run is my question. Zeke got stopped on 3rd and 1.5, no gain. 13 carries for a net of 0 yards for Zeke Elliott in that game. And so are you going to give it to Zeke again, or is Dak going to do something in the passing game that's been highly criticized? All right, it all leads to Jason Garrett's been on the hot seat. And what I will contend, a lot of people who are saying they should have gone for it on 4th and 1.5 are the same people who think that Jason Garrett should be fired.
I'm going to say, you want me to go first, Randy?
Go first, Keith.
Okay, I'm going first. I'm jumping in this thing. I'm going to say if the Cowboys don't make the playoffs, yes, Jason Garrett should be fired. I think that he's been on the job. This is his 9th year, counting that first year when he took over for Wade Phillips. This is his 9th year. He's had a bunch of 8-8 seasons. They have yet to follow up one of the better seasons with another good season. This is a roster in many ways that he handpicked. This is a roster that he's been prominent in helping to create. And I think in this week, NFC East, let's face it, the Giants stink. They absolutely stink. The Redskins, did you see them against the Saints? They stink. The Eagles have all kinds of injuries. I'm almost prepared to say they stink. They just beat up on a stinkier team.
What are your thoughts?
If they don't make the playoffs, I think he has to go.
Well, I'm not pointing the finger at Jason Garrett. I mean, he's not responsible for guys getting sick and having to start a rookie. Yeah. There's a lot of variables going on here. And there's a lot of time left in the season. I'm glad you said, let's wait and see what happens for the rest of the year, because I think this team, they haven't improved as quickly as we would have hoped in these first 4 games. There's other teams I've seen in the league that have improved more, but that doesn't mean Dallas isn't going to improve and become a better team. And I personally am not a big fan of, pointing the finger at the coach or anybody else at this point in time of the year. Let's wait till the season's over with, and then we'll make those evaluations.
All right, we're going to let it play out. Coming up here on Cowboys Game Day, will David Irving have an immediate impact in today's game? Plus, what impressed Randy the most about the goal line defense last week? The Manster buckles up his chin strap next on Cowboys Game Day.
It's time for the Nissan On the Road Report. Shop ChooseNissan.com. It's time for the Nissan On the Road Report. Shop ChooseNissan.com.
4th down and goal from the 1. Watson is flushed out, running right. He's running for it to the corner, and he is slung down short. He is caught by Jalen Smith.
I knew 4th down, more than likely Watson was going to take off. And he's fast, but I'm fast.
Throughout that game last Sunday night in Houston, Jalen Smith was spying on Deshaun Watson. That's why Deshaun Watson was questionable throughout the week whether he'd be able to start at noon today here on CBS 11 against Buffalo. He will be in the starting lineup for the Texans. But goal line stands for that defense. That's why that game got to overtime last week. Otherwise, it would have been at least a 2-touchdown win for the Texans. And Jalen Smith came up big, Randy.
Well, Jalen Smith came up big. I didn't think that quarterback was going to be able to walk off the field. But this defense has bend and don't break philosophy. They've been able to do it. They've been able to get in that red zone and stop them from getting in the end zone and make them kick field goals. So that's a big plus for them and a lot of positive things to build on coming into this week.
You know, I wasn't necessarily as much of a believer of the Cowboys defense as a lot of people until I saw that game for myself, because they were thoroughly outplayed, as Jerry Jones said, and the Texans moved the ball up and down the field, but when they had to buckle down, they just flat out buckled down, and the Texans could get no more.
4 times had first and goal inside the 10-yard line and had to settle for 3 field goals and got stopped on that 4th down play just before the half. The Jacksonville philosophy today should be to run the ball against this Dallas defense, because that was their philosophy last year when they made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. TJ Yeldon will be carrying the load because Leonard Fournette has been hobbled and out due to a hamstring injury. They signed Jamal Charles, by the way, this week, but they threw the ball 61 times last week against Kansas City. That is not Tom Coughlin's philosophy or his head coach, Doug Marrone, and so I anticipate they're going to get back to running the ball today.
I think they had to throw it a lot because they were facing Kansas City. And Kansas City
fell behind in the game.
And Kansas City is so dynamic offensively. When they get up, they force teams to do what they don't want to do, which is become a pass-only team. And that's not the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're not a pass-only team. Blake Bortles, we know he makes mistakes. But their thing is, if we give you less than 10 points, which we feel we can do every time our defense takes the field, we're going to win that game.
Randy,
what do we learn from that? We don't want to get behind in this football game.
That's right. The recipe for success for the Cowboys is to get ahead and stay ahead. That's what they did in their 2 wins at home over the Giants and the Lions. Leighton Vander Esch, we mentioned he had 18 tackles last week. They're going to be playing once again without Sean Lee this week. What have you seen out of Vander Esch?
I see a young guy that's going in there and he's giving 110%, and he's playing tough. He's making plays. He's doing everything right. Very impressed with the play of this young guy in there. Doing a great job.
All right, how about against Blake Bortles today? As I mentioned, Bortles threw it 61 times last week. He threw 4 interceptions last week, too. And the Cowboys actually got an interception. Xavier Woods got their first pick of the year last week. What do you think, Randy?
Well, you got to pressure this guy. He's not that great. He can run the football now. We're forgetting to say that. He can take off with the football. But if we can pressure him, disrupt his timing, and make him throw off cue, we've got a chance to get some more interceptions. But the key, just like when teams play us, we got to stop their running game. Because if they can run, they get it in 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, now the advantage goes to them.
DeMarcus Lawrence revealed on Friday that he's been playing with a torn labrum in his shoulder, and has been for the last couple of years.
Well, that's a tough injury, and he's a tough guy, and if it popped out, I've seen a couple guys that I've played with when their shoulders, that's excruciating pain, and he's an extremely tough guy to come out there and still compete and play at this high level, because that's a tough injury.
Okay, Randy, what can we expect out of David Irving, considering the fact he's had basically 3 practices in the last year?
We can expect fresh legs. We can expect a guy that's going to go in there and disrupt everything, I hope, stop that run in the middle. And he's a disrupting force in the running game and in the passing game. This guy can play football when we can keep him on the field.
People forget that he had 7 sacks. I forgot it until I read up on his stats from last year, because you're so used to him not playing. The bottom line is he comes out and he says, hey, I got other interests besides football. But when I'm there, when I'm on that field, I'm on that field. Well, today, we expect him to be on that field. So be on that field, and let's get some pressure on that quarterback.
At 6'7", just stand in there and be tall, like Too Tall Jones, too.
That's exactly right.
Up next, a milestone moment from last Sunday's game and some iconic video you've got to stick around to see.
The on-time delivery is sponsored by UPS. Future you. Apply now at upsjobs.com.
Cowboys tight end Jeff Swaim starting to deliver for the Cowboys after a career-high 55 yards receiving last week against the Texans. Swaim is now second on the team with 159 yards receiving through 5 games.
It's time for the Nissan Drive to Success. Shop ChooseNissan.com.
A look at the NFC East standings. The Eagles won on Thursday night over the Giants, so they are 3-3. Redskins play the Panthers today. They're 2-2. Cowboys try to move to the top of the East along with the Eagles. And one thing's for sure, as long as the Giants are still in the division, the Cowboys won't move to the cellar, as bad as it might get this season for the Cowboys. A look live at AT&T Stadium in Arlington. It's the Cowboys and the Jacksonville Jaguars, a 3-2 team coming off a big loss last week at Kansas City. 3:25 this afternoon with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on the call here on CBS 11. And a big shout out this week to the Cowboys' 37-year-old long snapper LP Ladouceur, who moved into 4th place all-time in games played on the Cowboys list with game number 210 last week against the Houston Texans. Jason Witten tops the list at 239, followed by Too Tall Jones at 224, Bill Bates at 217. Bill Jones, Randy White, Keith Russell. Final minute or so here of Cowboys Game Day. And who did LP Ladouceur pass on the all-time games played list? We'll take a look here. 2 guys that could cover punts. LP Ladouceur, the long snapper. And who's number 54 there? There's the Manster.
Who is that guy? I don't know who that guy is. That's past me, huh?
Yeah. How do you feel about a long snapper passing you on the all-time list?
Well, somebody got to pass me. Might as well be a long snapper. I don't care, Bill.
You really don't care. You never broke stride, though, Randy.
Yeah.
You never broke stride.
I probably kicked it out of the end zone.
You run down harder when you see it get kicked out of the end zone. All right, Cowboys and Jaguars. Keith, who do you got?
You know what? I'm mixed. I'm torn, but I'm going to have to go for the first time this season against the Dallas Cowboys. I just don't think they score enough. I know Tennessee beat Jacksonville 9-6. I don't think the Cowboys can score enough today.
All right, Randy, what do you say to that?
Cowboys win. Control first down. Put these guys in 3rd and long situations, rush that passer, and we win the game.
All right. Randy's 2-3 on his picks so far this season, so you need to get back to the 500 mark, and so do the Cowboys. We'll wrap it up tonight on CBS 11 News at 10 o'clock, and the game is right here at 3:25 with Nantz and Romo on the call, the Cowboys and the Jaguars. See you tonight.